Welcome, my name is Federico Ree, and this is InspireTalk, a program fundamentally pioneered and founded in Australia by four fabulous people. And also joining me tonight, I have my co-host, Laura Huxley. How are you, Laura?
I'm fantastic, thank you, Federico.
That's fantastic, and great to have you tonight. And joining me also tonight, or joining us tonight, we have a fabulous guest, which I'll introduce shortly. Her name is Rachel Moan. But before we get stuck into pretty much what Rachel's all about, I'd like to just have a quick chat about what is InspireTalk. Laura, if you can just give us a bit of a quick summary.
Of course, yeah. Well, InspireTalk is our live radio show where we inspire game changers, leaders, people who are out there doing their thing and leading the way and really making things happen. It's really a place in a community where we bring people together to have really insightful, interesting conversations and spark, you know, ideas for our listeners and really build a solid community where we can all share the amazing things that each of us are doing.
Look, it's certainly been an interesting journey. In less than 1 year, we've actually attracted some amazing speakers. Just recently, we had Jack Delosa, which was certainly a testament to how much this program is growing. But let's really turn our attention to our speaker tonight. Rachel, how are you? And welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It should be really good. I'm excited.
So as the listeners can hear, there is a British accent, so we are talking to someone who originates from England. Currently she's staying in Palma near the coast of Spain, which sounds very exotic. I'd love to be there myself, especially as it's cold and wintry in Melbourne. So Rachel, thanks for your time. I was going to say this evening in Melbourne, but this morning for you in your place. So tell us a little bit about what you do, and I know that you're a chartered management consultancy surveyor during the day, or that's your profession, but you're also the founder of Train Like an Athlete, or the acronym TLA. Tell us a little bit about what TLA is all about.
Okay, so TLA is a really innovative self-development company, and we're very, very different to other self-development companies, and what we really do is roots for the underdog. So we're there for the normal people like me. You know, maybe not you guys. You're kind of up here. I'm still underdog. But what we do is we use sports psychology and really proven techniques that athletes use, and this is what we use to help people in their lifestyle and in their business lives as well.
That's fabulous. And what I can also add, and I guess it's the essence of tonight's show, is you were also nominated the Virgin Startup Entrepreneur in 2015. Now that's certainly a very prestigious award or nomination. And how does it feel, Rachel, to be nominated that particular title by Richard Branson?
So I have to remind myself every day, because I think when you get up and you go to work and you're working kind of 19 hours a day, you forget. And so I always have to try and sit back and remember. But it's hugely, it's a massive honour. And I think something that I am eternally grateful for. I think having support from people is always amazing, but to have it from a company and someone that you admire to a really insane level has been amazing. So kind of like a dream come true in a really calming sense.
I'm sure it was a dream come true, and I'm sure our listeners are very curious to understand, what your journey was to become nominated a Virgin Startup Entrepreneur. But before we sort of delve into that any further, I might give Laura an opportunity maybe to ask the next question. Laura, on to you.
Yeah, congratulations, Rachel. What a fantastic accomplishment. I'm really interested to hear about what was it that triggered the idea for you? What was it that made you go, do you know what, I've got this amazing idea and I'm going to apply to do Virgin Startup. What was it that kind of sparked that for you?
So I might go right back to the beginning. So when I was younger, I trained professionally as a dancer. So my life was, I went to a special school, like people who go to special gymnastics schools, and then I got something wrong with my spine, and then kind of like a few things after another. So the way I'd always trained when I was younger was like a professional athlete. That's what you do, you know, everything else is sacrificed. And I think that that was something really handy to have. So after that, I went to university and I went and got a normal job, but I still wanted to have something that you aim for all the time. So whether it would be lawyer or doctor, but I was no good at science, so that wouldn't happen. And at the time, the construction industry was something that really kind of needed other people to work there. So it seemed like a good thing to do, coming from the background of someone who was completely unrelated to any kind of academic job. And so I trained really hard, did a master's degree, and it is, you know, it's very hard to qualify in a profession. And I qualified, and then the recession hit. So every plan that you had to kind of do something really big and to try and be the best in your field almost collapsed overnight. All the jobs went, and it was almost about survival. And so I changed from the public to change around from the private sector to the public sector, and then we got relocated, and it kind of seemed that everything you had worked for had gone. There was nothing that you could look forward to. All you could see was trying to survive, and that was it. That was as good as it got. And probably for about 20 years, literally since I was 10, I'd had this kind of thing. I wanted to be an entrepreneur and have a business, but I didn't really have the voice behind it. So you knew that you wanted to do something. So it's almost like maybe like a musician. You know that you want to do it, and you're kind of good at some things, but you don't have the drive that you need behind it to have the voice that dictates how you will do things. And then I think probably being so close to losing your job quite a few times and trying to do everything you can to move on and it just not really going anywhere, that was just the thing that started it. And I was going through Crewe railway station, which you might know, which is like it's not a very nice place at all, and that's where I was going every day to do a huge commute. And it was on a Virgin Trains Pendolino, which in the UK it's like the equivalent of a Japanese bullet train. It's an amazing train, all the Virgin trains, amazing. And I was going through Crewe railway station, and I saw a sign that said, Virgin Startup is our new company. If you have an idea, you want to be an entrepreneur, get in touch with us today. I thought, wow, you know, for the people who get on that scheme, that's a ridiculous scheme. That's so amazing. I looked into it, and then I thought, well, since everything I've tried to plan for has almost gone down the toilet, there's something that Shock Blaniuk, who wrote Fight Club, he said that you have to lose everything before you can do the thing that you really want to do. I think it felt like that. And so I'd always had these ideas about sports psychology and using that to help people, and suddenly it kind of came together, and that's how I ended up applying for the scheme. In a really long-winded story.
That's amazing. What a great story, and very inspirational. And then obviously, you know, you won the award and the funding. So what did that then enable you to do once that came through in 2015?
So I had to put a business plan together as part of the application process. So every penny was accounted for. So I knew that even though I wouldn't have many products to sell, because that would take a lot longer, because I think it's almost like starting a band. You maybe have one song, but a band is about a load of songs and a vision. So you get the band sorted before you have 19 albums. So that was my idea. So the website was set up. And with Virgin, you get given a mentor, which is really helpful. And Tony is big on branding, so he would kind of explain to me that your business is about why you're doing it, not how you're doing it or what you're doing it. It's always about why. So it gave me the chance to put something on a website, gave me some time to write some products, and my idea became more to get the message out there rather than try and sell things.
Yeah, wonderful.
Listening to your story, Rachel, is certainly inspirational to me, and I'm sure to a lot of other aspiring entrepreneurs. It's like you've had a dream, or perhaps came across this opportunity, and in some regards, it is like winning the lottery when it comes to getting the attention of Virgin and actually going all throughout the whole process and being nominated the Virgin Startup Entrepreneur for the Year. Certainly that gave you a lot of encouragement and confidence to keep going with your business. And coming back to one comment you made before about being the best in your field, I guess one question I have for you is, how do you become the best in your field? In this case, how do you run a business, like train like an athlete, successfully whilst having a full-time job? And I think that's the predicament that a lot of startups have, is that they've got to work to be able to fund their dream business. So how do you sort of balance that and your time?
So it is really, really difficult, which is basically where I use my skills from dancing from when I was younger. So you get up as early as you can, you know, you do things at lunchtime, on your lunch break. When you have 10 minutes, that's when you're using Hootsuite to set up your social media for the week. That's when you're reading articles. The evening I do a lot. I think it's quite hard sometimes when you realise that immediately you don't have every single skill that you need to have. That's quite frustrating for me. So it's a longer process than perhaps I realised. But I think every day you're being successful if you're doing something more than you did yesterday. So even if you have the worst day at work and you're really tired, if you read an article or listen to an InspireTalk video on YouTube, like I did, just always do something, even if you feel like you need to go to sleep. And then you'll have days when you're really motivated to do a lot more. So I think it's the balance sometimes of how you try and work with the two jobs.
Look, I can certainly relate to your story as far as what does it take to be an entrepreneur or a successful entrepreneur. It does take hard work. It does take perseverance, a bigger picture, and the vision. I'm sure that when you were nominated this particular award, it did give you the encouragement to keep going. In fact, I'd like to read out what Richard Branson had to say about your business, which became, I'm sure, important marketing collateral for your business. And this is what Richard Branson had to say about TLA. TLA has found a niche in the self-development market and has a convincing plan on how to establish themselves and grow. Entrepreneurialism, like that shown by Rachel, is vital for our economy, and I'm delighted to support the next generation of British businesses. I wish TLA every success and look forward to watching the business go from strength to strength. I've got to personally say what an honour to have Richard Branson personally write that for your business. How do you feel about having that beside you along the way as you keep going?
So I printed that quote out and I have it everywhere. So I have it as a backdrop on my phone, and so when I go to work in the normal job, I've written it out and I have it in my pencil case because it's a really cool thing to see. So I think when I first saw it, I said, what if they've written it about the wrong person? Like, what if the whole time it was meant to be about someone else and they meant to give the funding to someone else? But it's a bit crazy. But I think you also need to sit back sometimes and remember and appreciate it, which is probably something I don't do too much. But it's amazing. It was kind of huge, mega huge.
Fantastic story, Rachel. So I might pass it back to Laura, who I'm sure has a few questions to ask. Laura?
Absolutely. So I would love to hear about the vision for TLA. What have you got planned for the future? What does that look like? Yeah, tell us a bit more about that.
So I always said I had a really, really simple aim, which it does seem like a simple aim, which was to change the world. Which I thought that was a really simple thing to say. So what we have 3 books at the moment, and we have 2 more coming out. But I think that our big thing will be courses online that we are going to get out by the 1st of January, because for self-development, the 1st of January is a huge date to start doing things. So the focus will be on the courses. And then we have a whole business arm as well that we're trying to set up. But I think even though you have your plan to do certain things, there's other things that come up maybe in the meantime where it changes the focus slightly. But definitely, if someone said, where are you headed, I would say, well, obviously to change the world. but first we're doing the courses.
Obviously to change the world. I love that. I love the passion, and I think that the passion is a huge part of being an entrepreneur and making it work, and when it is difficult and when it is challenging, it's, you know, it is about going back to that passion and the why, and I think that that's really, really clear from, you know, you can even feel it coming through the screen, your passion, which is amazing. I love it. So what advice would you give to somebody who's kind of just looking into what you're doing, and they might be thinking, you know, I want to start being a bit healthier, or I want to start, you know, actually sticking to doing the things I say I'm going to do, or I want to create some new habits in my life. What advice would you give to them? Like, where can they start having a look?
So we would point them in the direction of the tools that people like Michael Phelps use, who is obviously, you know, biggest Olympian in the whole world, in that everything they do, every single thing they do in the day is geared towards their goal. But there's probably a much bigger goal you're working towards. It's not just maybe eating more healthily. It's part of something a lot bigger. And I think especially with the recession, people's goal is to actually really do something that they want to do. So even though it might be to eat more healthily, it probably actually is more, say, to be more recognised at work, or to do something a lot bigger than what they had done. So we would always try and find what the bigger picture is, and then we would give them tools like visualization that athletes use. So you visualize what this image of you doing these amazing things will be, and then you teach them that actually it's really, really difficult. So to do these things, you have to completely change your mindset, but you have to find the real reason that you're doing it, because otherwise you won't stick after it, you won't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. It's so easy to start something and have, you know, have an idea, but if you're not clear on what that goal actually looks like and why you're doing it, it's really easy to kind of let it fall by the wayside and go back to your old habits. So I think that's really important. What about, I think we mentioned actually just before we came live about the community aspect of being a part of Virgin and all of that, and what opportunities that's given you. How important do you think it is for entrepreneurs to have a community like something like the Virgin community, and what do you think that we gain from that?
So I think it's hugely important. I think sometimes I found it quite hard because I don't think there were many businesses they funded where they had maybe gone to them with an idea. So a lot of them were businesses that were already established in some way. And so it was quite hard at the beginning going to events where you would get speaking and people were talking about how far along they were already and all these amazing things they've done. And I got really worried because I was nowhere near that at all. And then you realise that maybe those people actually have been going 4 or 5 years. So I think it's also really good to find a community that are at the same stage as you. So there's one I find really helpful called the Happy Startup School, which is, it's relatively new, it's UK based. And something that they really try and put across is, even if you have an idea for a business but you don't have products, get something out there and make sure that your vision goes out there. You don't necessarily have something to sell apart from your idea for how you're going to change the world. And things like that, where you wouldn't believe actually how much people help each other for no other reason that it helps the other person. There's no monetary gain. There's nothing else for them to gain off it apart from meeting people and helping someone else. And then through the Virgin Startup Network, there's actually one of my friends who started a business called Text Data. He has just got an ebook that he's getting out soon, and that's about the really hard stories of having a startup. So it's not about how great it is and how much fun. It's about, this is really what it's like, and this is how hard it is, and this is how we kept doing it. So once that's out, I'll tell you about it. But it's just really good sometimes to have people who agree that say it's really, really difficult, but you don't ever give up. You just recognise that it's really difficult.
Yeah, I think it's easy.
I might actually steal the microphone now, as we've had a question come through from Kerry. There's a bit of echo going on there, so hopefully that'll go away with Google. Kerry is asking a question: what advice would you give someone to be their next virgin startup entrepreneur? Hopefully you can hear that, Rachel.
Yes. So I think it was, what advice would you give if you wanted to be a virgin startup entrepreneur?
That's right.
So number one, with Virgin, at the moment they fund in the UK, and I think they just started funding in Scotland. So there's interest from lots of other countries. So whether they can do something in the future with Virgin, would be amazing. So even if it's not Virgin, there's so many schemes out there that could help. They could be, I'm sure in Australia you might have government-backed schemes or kind of local enterprise schemes. But actually, to also give you some more background on how Virgin managed to do it, there was no scheme like it in the UK. And actually, Richard Branson and Richard Reed, who owns Innocent Smoothies, and a couple of other really prominent entrepreneurs had to lobby the UK government for a long time to try and persuade them that instead of just giving loans to people going to university, give it to people who want to start a business. So I would say, even if at the moment you can't do it with Virgin, just make sure that you have a good idea and that you're really passionate about it. Do some research to see what opportunities there are, but also really get talking to people just to find out what's going on. And even if you're not ready to launch, get your ideas running and try and get a social media presence so you get your story out there and you get interest and you're making friends and contacts all the time.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, Rachel. And I think it comes back around to what you said earlier about asking for help. Quite often, and I'm definitely guilty of it, of trying to do everything. And in the past, sometimes it does get overwhelming and difficult, and you actually forget that there is actually help out there, that you can put your hand out and say, this is a great thing that I'm doing, is there any help out there? So I think that's really, really good advice. Thank you. I've got one more question here from Jacob, and he says, how has your life/job opportunities changed since being the Virgin startup entrepreneur? Would you recommend to others to aim for something similar to gain leverage?
I would always recommend doing something like that. I think the reason, though, I would do for leverage, it would be just for help and to be part of something really amazing. So always make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. So anything like that has the potential to give you really good PR, but I think especially with Virgin, it's very much based on their core values. And I think they really like people who are not doing something for monetary gain. It's about changing the world, or it's about having a huge impact on something. So I think just make sure that when you're looking to do something like that, make sure it's for the right reasons and it comes across that is why you want to be part of that community.
I always like looking at the philosophies and thoughts that go through the minds of entrepreneurs and successful people. And in this case, Rachel, you're sharing to the audience what your legacy is, I guess, to your business, what your purpose is to the business, and how it serves the community. I'd like to just read out a few of these for the audience, for the listeners, and we call these the golden nuggets within our show. And some of these that I've written down include being the best in your field, but also about why are you doing it, fundamentally the purpose behind the origin of starting the business. You've mentioned about changing the world, and I think that's honourable to really contribute back to the world and back to the community. doing it for the right reason, having passion along the way, and obviously knowing how to market yourself, especially through social media. I'd like to just stay on that topic just for a little bit longer in terms of the attributes and the type of character traits that you need to have as an entrepreneur. I haven't asked you this question before, but I'd like to actually know, do you consider yourself an entrepreneur? Do you see yourself like-minded, like a Richard Branson? What are your thoughts on that, Rachel?
I think so, because I think being an entrepreneur is about doing something really creative and doing something that you really, really want to do, and doing it in a way that has a positive impact. And I try and align being an entrepreneur to if you were in a band. So one of my biggest entrepreneurial heroes is Mark Ronson. I don't know if he's huge in Australia. At home, he's a huge DJ and producer, and he's one of my big heroes because he brings things together that shouldn't really go together, but they work. And he has this huge vision for something, which is about being hugely creative. And even if it's doing something like I do freelance writing for different people, that's still doing something that is completely against the norm, but you're doing something because you really want to do it and there's a reason that you're doing it. But other people will think you're insane, because I think now I have 3 jobs and a startup. But it's all about having good fun, but about doing something really positive, I think.
Absolutely. I fully endorse that, Rachel. And I guess as an entrepreneur myself, I can go further to say that it really requires tenacity. It also takes that brave, courageous attitude to deal with the highs and lows, the setbacks, the failures. I'm sure you've experienced some of those already, and as you keep going forward, you'll have the highs and lows, a bit like a roller coaster ride. So, look, personally, I'd like to wish you all the best, and I guess what I'd like to maybe do shortly is sort of wrap up. Rachel, I know that you've got other things to do today, like running your own business and also having a job. But before we wrap up, maybe I might give Laura the chance to ask one last question, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thank you, Federico, and thank you so much, Rachel. What an inspirational chat. Thank you for sharing all of your insights. I guess I want to know what's next immediately for you. What are you focusing your attention on at the moment with TLA, and what do you want other people to know about?
So I would say the online courses. I think especially with things like Udemy, there's such a massive platform to do things like that, to get things out there in a really easy way. But we want to do really kind of focused courses, but courses that people can afford to use, which is the whole point of the business, that people can afford to actually buy the products. So that is definitely where it's headed. And then more social media, just because it's fun and it's good to meet people and being part of a community. So I would say it's all about digital, and it's all about learning a lot more. I have a lot more to learn, and obviously having fun and remembering why you do it.
Fantastic advice. Really, really great. Well, thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Rachel, and enjoy your time in Parma. I'm very jealous. And yeah, we'll look forward to following your journey and seeing your successes in the future. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now, just before we wrap up, just to let the viewers or the listeners make them aware of what's coming with our show. We have a few exciting guests joining us in the next round. On the 12th of July, we have Kellen Fluckiger. Hopefully I've pronounced that name correctly. We also have Lisa Messenger on the 26th of July, and also Joe Cross on the 2nd of August. So we do have an exciting lineup of top speakers joining us in the next few rounds. But for tonight, I'd like to give Rachel a big thank you for your time and for your insights. And I do wish you all the best with your endeavours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening, and for everyone who listened in. It was really fun.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Rachel.
And thanks to you too, Laura, for co-hosting.
Thanks, Fed. Great as always.
Thank you.